If you're interested in playing the Primal Rage machine that is Barbarian, you want to be that big meat shield tank for your party, this class is one of the best frontliners, if not like the best frontliner currently in the official content for D&D 5e. I know that we're a little bit late in the edition, we're looking at potentially getting a new one coming up, but this is a designer's perspective on what the class loadout is trying to tell you about how to play the class, what the hit dice, the armor, yada yada yada. I'm walking you through basically what the class features are trying to inform you in combat what you're supposed to be doing. And I encourage you, if you figure out some kind of weird wacky build that allows you to like do ranged barbarian stuff, like go for it. I love it whenever people experiment with the game. This is just going to be a guide telling you, as a game designer's perspective, what the class loadout is kind of informing that you should be doing in combat. With that, let's go over into D&D Beyond and take a look at the Barbarian. We're actually going to skip ahead of all the lore and just get right into the class features. So starting out, you get a D12 hit die. This is the biggest hit die of any of the classes in the current game. This means that on average, you're going to have 6.5 hit points. Basically, you're going to have at least one more hit point on average than anybody else at the table. This immediately informs that you want to be up in the melee, right? The next thing that can inform that is going to be what is going to be your AC bonus. Right here, it's going to give you light armor, medium armor, and shields. Realistically, with the Barbarian, the light and medium armor it's there, but they've got a feature given to you at first level that makes it to where you're not really too worried about picking up armor at first level. With weapons, you're going to get simple weapons and martial weapons, so essentially all weapons that aren't improvised weapons. Tools, none. Saving throws, strength and constitution. Strength being your weak save, it's just not really often that we get a lot of strength checks called for in the game. And constitution being your strong save. With constitution, dexterity, and wisdom, these are the three strong saves that get called in combat all the time. Skills, you choose two from animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival. So what this means is you can be the party muscle, you can be the party navigator. There's not really much of anything in here that's informing some of the other dynamics. If you're interested in checking out some info on what I mean by like roleplay dynamics, I'll put the video for that like somewhere over in this corner that you can go check out. Equipment, you start out with the following equipment. You can start out with a great axe or any martial melee weapon. You can get 2 hand axes or any simple weapon, and then you get an explorer's pack and 4 javelins. So with the javelins, whenever you make an attack with these, they can be used with your strength. If you are getting into combat with a lot of flying enemies, this is an option for you. You're not just stuck. If you used your rage and you can't really think of anything to do, pull out a javelin and throw it. At the very least, you'll maintain your rage. Now, the thing to make note of in their equipment is despite the fact that you get light and medium armor up here in the proficiencies, and shields, you don't actually get that with the basic core loadout. And that's because they're going to get this Unarmored Defense feature that we'll talk about here in a second. But Rage, this is your first level bread and butter right here. In 5e, the action economy lineup is going to be you have an action, you have a bonus action, you have your movement, and then a potential reaction if there's something that causes the reaction to trigger. This is going to be your core bonus action, like your core gameplay loop, anytime that you're playing a Barbarian. Basically, in the first round of combat, if you know that you can get into range to make a melee weapon attack against the target, this is the time that you need to activate this. Bonus actions are either going to be setup or follow-up. So what I mean by that is it's either going to be something that comes before your action or something that follows your action, right? This right here is definitely setup. You're going to use this and then use your main attack or your main action to go in and hit the thing with an attack. So on your turn, you can enter a rage as a bonus action. While raging, you gain the following benefits if you aren't wearing heavy armor. You have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. When you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you gain a bonus to the damage roll that increases as you gain levels as a Barbarian, as shown in the rage damage column of the Barbarian table. Note that this is actually the damage roll and not the attack roll. I've seen this confused whenever I was running Adventurers League in the past. The damage roll is going to be a nice +2 right here. And then the big bread and butter that's telling you, yep, I'm going to be the party meat shield. I want to sponge all the damage as much as I can. While you're in this state, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. These are overwhelmingly the most common damage types in the game. If something's a melee weapon attack, most likely it's dealing these forms of damage. There are other damage types and yada yada yada, but most commonly, these are going to be the damage types that you're just going to straight up cut in half while you're in this state. Now, this form comes with a couple caveats. If you're able to cast spells, you can't cast them or concentrate on them while raging. I love that flavor pick right there. You're just so mad that you literally cannot focus on casting any spells. Your rage lasts for 1 minute. So a minute in terms of like the combat order, what does that actually mean? This is going to mean at most you're going to get 10 rounds out of this. But there are these other conditions that can potentially end it early. This ends early if you're knocked unconscious, or if your turn ends and you haven't attacked a hostile creature since your last turn, or taken damage since then. You can also end your rage on your turn as a bonus action. So this last part right here, why would you end it if you're going straight Barbarian? There's not a whole lot of reason for that. My best assumption is that if you're going with like maybe a Barbarian spellcaster build, you want to end it because the benefit that you're going to get out of spellcasting is going to be better. But once you have raged a number of times shown for your Barbarian level in the rage column of the Barbarian table, you must finish a long rest before you can rage again. So right here, you get 2 uses of it. And then eventually this thing is going to scale up to where it doesn't matter. You can just do this an unlimited number of times at 20th level. I know not a lot of players get to this point, but like, ooh, boy, that is scary. So what rage is informing you right here, you're going to go up, hit stuff harder, you're going to succeed on these strength checks and strength saving throws, you are just hulking out right here, and then you're going to have the resistance right there. You're better at tanking, you're better at frontlining. This is like one of the definitive 5th edition frontline features. Rage is just incredible at communicating what it means to play this class. And then moving on from there, Unarmored Defense, while you're not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit. Now, for newer players out there, this is modifier, not score, okay? So it's not your score of like 13 dex is what you add on here. This is like the +3 or the +2 that you got. Yeah, it's the thing that you add to the skill check if, you know. Now, the last sentence here, you can use a shield and still gain this benefit. Also, remember, we don't actually get a shield right in here, and I kind of think that Wizards of the Coast was like, you can use a shield, but we want you to give this a try first, you know? So I think here at first level, if you're going with a standard loadout, you're not actually buying any equipment, you're most likely not really thinking about this part right here. But this perk right up on top, armor class of 10 plus your dex mod plus your con mod, boy, this should be telling you, again, just informing more about what was going on with Rage, you need to be in the front. You need to be one of the characters that's making sure that the wizard can get spells off, whatever. No one's going to gang up on your buddies. Reckless Attack, you're getting at 2nd level. You can throw aside all concern for defense to attack with fierce desperation. When you make your first attack on your turn, you can decide to attack recklessly. Doing so gives you advantage on melee weapon attack rolls using strength during this turn, but attack rolls against you have advantage until your next turn. So what Reckless Attack is doing, right? Advantage, you're going to roll 2d20, use the higher result. Mathematically, this has been kind of debated on what the average of that actually is, the average change to the result. For advantage, it's either a swing of about 3.5 all the way up to maybe 4.5, and then with disadvantage, it's the exact negative, right? Negative 3.5 or 4.5. There is a feat later on that we'll talk about once we get to 4th level that is just kind of the standard MO pickup whenever you're going to play a Barbarian in this game. So we'll move on from there, go to Danger Sense. You gain an uncanny sense of when things nearby aren't as they should be, giving you an edge when you dodge away from danger. You have advantage on dexterity saving throws against effects you can see, such as traps and spells. To gain this benefit, you can't be blinded, deafened, or incapacitated. This is actually a really remarkable feature that, like, amongst all the things in Barbarian that you're getting here in the core, it just doesn't seem like I really hear people talk about how good Danger Sense is. Just generally getting advantage on the dexterity saving throws, I feel like right now this is mathematically better than you having proficiency in the saving throws. And then if you get something later on that does give you proficiency in the saving throw, this still works with that. Your Primal Path is going to be your choice of subclass. It's going to give you a feature here at 3rd level, at 6th level, at 10th level, and then again at 14th level. I'll kind of briefly go over the different subclasses in this video, but I do have reviews of all these, I think most, if not all of the subclasses here on YouTube if you want to go check that out. Now, if your table's using the material from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, you could get one of these optional class features here, the first one being Primal Knowledge that comes online at 3rd level. When you reach 3rd level, and again at 10th level, you gain proficiency in one skill of your choice from the skills available to Barbarians at 1st level. The entirety of the reason why Wizards decided to give this to Barbarian is because so much of their core identity is focused on combat that it didn't really feel like a lot of the roleplay heart was really getting evoked from the class. So they're giving you an extra skill right here. I've never had an issue with anybody taking this, here at 3rd. So up from there, we get your ability score improvement. When you reach 4th level, and again at 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level, you can increase one ability score of your choice by 2, or you can increase 2 ability scores of your choice by 1. As normal, you can't increase an ability score above 20 using this feature. Now the second part, using the optional feats rule, you can forgo taking this feature to take a feat of your choice instead. In 5e, there are a whole lot of feats that make Barbarian pretty scary. This is something of an optional rule here, but it's optional in quotation marks because I think most tables are actually using feats. The last I heard, research data was showing that something like an overwhelming majority of 85 or something % of players on D&D Beyond reported their table uses feats. So I think that eventually it's going to move away from being an optional rule to just being one of the things you can get, right? Now, what are the certain feats that I think make an incredible Barbarian? Charger could be pretty good if you want to pick this one up. When you use your action to dash, you can use a bonus action to make one melee weapon attack or to shove a creature. If you move at least 10 feet straight in a line immediately before taking this bonus action, you either gain a +5 bonus to the attack's damage roll if you choose to make a melee attack and hit, or push the target up to 10 feet away from you if you shove and you succeed. So if you want to go with a little bit more control, this is in here, but man, the mobility that you'll get out of going with a Charger Barbarian build, whoo, buddy. What Charger also does is it gives you a form of mobility that makes it easier for you to maintain your rage. The synergy that's happening here with the Barbarian kit is just absolutely perfect. When you use your action to dash, so use the action there, you can then use a bonus action to make one melee weapon attack or shove a creature, right? So if you want to go with that more kind of a control heavy build, Charger, boy, this is a pretty good pickup. But here at 4th level, the one that is pretty hard to knock is going to be Great Weapon Master. You learn to put the weight of a weapon to your advantage, letting its momentum empower your strikes. You gain the following benefits. On your turn, when you score a critical hit with a melee weapon or reduce a creature to 0 hit points with one, you can make one melee weapon attack as a bonus action. Before you make a melee attack with a heavy weapon that you're proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to the attack roll. If the attack hits, you add +10 to the attack's damage. That +10 flat damage that you get to add to the attack is insane in the first tier of play, still ridiculous in the second tier of play, still relevant in the third tier of play, and boy, it's still going to take a chunk out of the enemy in the fourth tier of play. But here at 4th level, this is, if you really find a love for using two-handed weapons, especially these heavy weapons in here, this is kind of a de facto pickup that you're using with a Barbarian, especially whenever you're doing Reckless Attack. Because with the Reckless Attack, remember the mathematics we talked about, that swing of about a 3.5 to potentially a 4.5 is something that you're doing to overcome this penalty right here. So the synergy with this feat seems to have been designed around a Barbarian using Reckless Attack. This is so insanely strong. Actually, it's so good that me personally, I feel like in future editions, we may very well see Great Weapon Master nerfed. Another pickup that you can go with, if maybe you're not really sold on the idea of I just want to be the heavy damage dealing Barbarian, you do have Sentinel if you want a bit of lockdown and tank potential here. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, the creature's speed becomes 0 for the rest of the turn. So, opportunity attack, if the creature's within melee of you and it tries to leave your reach, you can then, wham, hit it, right? So, if you do hit it with the opportunity attack, it can't move away. It cannot move away. And then, creatures provoke opportunity attacks from you even if they take the disengage action before leaving your reach. So if you've gotten here to 4th level and you fought goblins like the rest of us, you're probably going to understand why this part of it is so strong. This is such heavy lockdown, and it synergizes with the first part of it. The creature's speed becomes 0 for the rest of the turn. All the while, these attacks that you're making are going to benefit from your rage damage bonus if you're raging at the time. This last bullet point right here is, boy, you want to be that like angry protector. Some creature within 5 feet of you is hitting one of your buddies right here. You can then use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. And notice this is also benefiting from rage. Like, I love Sentinel so much. Now, Resilient is also a pretty good pickup, and stick with me on this one. You choose one ability score and gain the following benefits. You increase the chosen ability score by 1 to a maximum of 20, and then you gain proficiency in saving throws using the chosen ability. The reason that I'm kind of recommending Resilient here, and I would recommend that you go and pick up actually Wisdom saving throws with this. You get the advantage to Dex whenever you have your Danger Sense up. You have proficiency with Constitution saving throws already. You go over and you get Wisdom. Now you've got a bonus to the 3 core, like, strong saving throws there, the ones that are going to come up the most often. This is just kind of shoring up a potential weakness of the Barbarian. Wisdom saving throws are the most common saving throws made against being charmed or frightened, because, I mean, let's be honest, the entire party hearing that the Barbarian just got charmed, everyone's going to freak out. So pick up Wisdom saving throws with this if you decide to go this route. And then the last one I'm going to recommend is actually going to be Tough. Your hit point maximum increases by an amount equal to twice your level when you gain this feat. Whenever you gain a level thereafter, your hit point maximum increases by an additional 2 points. What Tough right here is doing is, now this isn't actually increasing the size of your hit die, but I think mathematically, this is about an average of having a D16 hit die. Tough is so good. This is a flat thing that you're going to get that's going to increase every single level. This scales with you incredibly well, but I do think here at 4th level, depending on the playstyle that you really want to go with, I know that Great Weapon Master is definitely kind of a de facto pickup. If you do want to lean more into the tank side of it, rather than going with Tough, I would probably recommend maybe Sentinel, maybe Resilient, but Tough is a really good pickup. It's your call, whatever flavor you want to go with there. And keep in mind, Variant Human also gets one of these at 1st level. So if you're going to go with a Barbarian, here's some feat suggestions right here. Now here at 5th level, you're getting extra attack. At 5th level, you can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. Now, notice this is specifically on your turn. This is a huge, huge power spike for you. The reason why I'm calling this out right here, newer players, new DMs, this is not as an opportunity attack. This is only whenever you're taking that attack action on your turn. And then also at 5th level, you're getting fast movement, which is going to increase your movement speed by 10 feet, so 2 extra squares, while you aren't wearing heavy armor. So here's your positioning tool right here to get in and lock down the enemy. Now, 6th level, you do get a subclass feature, so you don't get another one until 7th. Your instincts are so honed that you have advantage on initiative rolls. Whenever you start up combat, boom, you're going to roll 2d20, use the highest result. Additionally, if you're surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you can act normally on your first turn, but only if you enter your rage before doing anything else on that turn. Also at 7th, you can pick up Instinctive Pounce. As a part of the bonus action you take to enter your rage, you can move up to half your speed. I think that Barbarian is definitely gonna want to pick this up. So Instinctive Pounce could be a little bit confusing in the way that this is worded, but DMs out there, I promise you, it's pretty okay to let the Barbarian take this. You want them to be able to get in and lock down. That is their role. It is what they want to do. This is actually really great at informing what the Barbarian is meant to be doing in combat and just making it that much easier for them, right? So whenever it says you can move up to half your speed, this is just additional speed that you get. It doesn't actually subtract from the speed that you have as a part of your character, right? At this level, I think you've got 40. So you're not actually using 20 feet of speed. You can move up to 20 feet. That doesn't subtract away from your speed. I know that's a little bit confusing. So yeah, informing you even more, rage is your setup. Use that before you attack. Note that with Feral Instinct, you also, this can kick in with Instinctive Pounce. So 7th level is actually pretty scary on just what it's doing for you as a Barbarian in that first round of combat. The big bread and butter here that's going to feel like this is just relevant to you at all levels of play is advantage on initiative rolls. Anytime you get to enter combat, there's a really good chance you're going to go first. Like, well, you're going to go way ahead of most other creatures in combat. Yeah. This right here makes Bugbear Barbarian look terrifying. Brutal Critical. Beginning at 9th level, you can roll 1 additional weapon damage die when determining the extra damage for a critical hit with a melee attack. This increases to 2 additional dice at 13th level and 3 additional dice at 17th level. So let me explain how this works right here. Brutal Critical has raised a little bit of confusion in terms of what it actually means to be making an extra crit die damage on top of all the whatever, right? So in the equipment, the 2 weapons that most often come up whenever we're talking about the Barbarian and its interaction with features like this are going to be the Great Axe and the Great Sword. Now, there's an interesting little interplay that happens here. You'll notice here that the Great Sword does 2d6, the Great Axe does 1d12. What this means is that, on an average, a Great Axe is doing 6.5 damage on a turn, the Great Sword is doing an average of 7 damage on a turn. The lowest you can roll with a Great Sword is going to be a 2, the highest you can roll is a 12, the Great Axe lowest you can roll is a 1, and the highest you can roll is a 12. Now, the trade-off on that, the Great Sword is going to be much more reliable, but the Great Axe is going to be dealing more damage on a crit. Because whenever you do roll for a crit and you roll one of the weapon's damage dice an additional time, the Great Sword only gets a d6. They don't get the 2d6 here. So for the purposes of Brutal Critical, what that would mean is if you crit with a Great Axe, you're going to be rolling 2 additional d12. For a Great Sword, you're going to be rolling 2 additional d6s, right? So this is going to be doing more damage on average with a crit, but honestly, the reliability and dependability of the Great Sword, like Great Axe, more damage on the crit, you want to go with that high risk, high reward, yeah, totally, go for it. But if you're looking for the more dependable kind of foregoing a little bit of the crit damage in order to get a reliable source of like an average of 7 plus everything, yeah, Great Sword is just, in a lot of ways, we feel kind of mechanically superior right now. But going back to Brutal Critical, this increases to 2 additional dice at 13th level and 3 additional dice at 17th level. So, Relentless Rage. Starting at 11th level, your rage can keep you fighting despite grievous wounds. If you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging and don't die outright, you can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. If you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead. Each time you use this feature after the first, the DC increases by 5, and when you finish a short or long rest, the DC resets to 10. 11th level, getting you here into the 3rd tier of play, where monsters are really starting to become those like legendary, sometimes like demon lords, or I mean hell, depending on what adventure you're playing, you could be fighting gods right here. So here at 11th level, you being able to just basically say no to death, like, I mean, this is sick nasty. And the thing is, at this level, your party healer has had access to resurrection magic for at least the last 2 levels. Paladin is getting their 3rd level spell slots at 9th level. Cleric has had it since 5th level, so you're not really worried about if you die in combat. But in the case that, like, things are kind of running slim and you're like, should I risk it? This is actually going to be pretty easy for you to pass. Right off the bat, it's a Constitution saving throw. You have proficiency with this, and there are ways that you could enhance this Constitution save. And then if you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead, but then the DC increases by 5. Even if this is a 15, I still feel like that's pretty easy for you to pass here at 11th level. Even if it gets up to a DC 20, I still think more often than not, you're probably going to be passing that check. Like, it's only whenever I really see that this is up at like a DC 25 that I start to think that the Barbarian might not make it, right? But even if you don't, you're still making death saving throws. So you are going to be ridiculously hard to take down. Barbarians above 11th level get to be nutty. Brutal Critical is going to get an improvement here at 13th level, so just going back to the equipment section right here, what this would mean, if you're rolling, it's 2 additional die here. So on top of the 1d12 additional that you would get from the crit, you would get 2 additional d12s. So the weapon's damage die plus 3d12 at this point, or in this case, the weapon's damage die plus 3d6s. So going over here at 15th level, this is a level after your final subclass feature that you're going to get. Your rage is so fierce that it ends only if you fall unconscious or if you choose to end it. If you just decided to, you just want to stay angry all day, you're just having a bad day, boy, you can make that really work out with a Barbarian right here. Is it really practical that you just want to stay angry all the time? I mean, there's really no need for you to cast spells. Like any of the other detriments that happen in this, it's just not really a thing. You can just stay mad all day if you want to, giving you advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws all day long, getting you the bonus of the damage all day long, getting you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage all day long. Like, yeah. Brutal critical. So you get the last improvement of it right up here. So you can roll 3 additional weapon damage die. And again, mathematics on that. So with the Great Axe, you're going to have the 1 additional plus 3 now. So whenever you crit, you're going to roll the 1d12 plus 4d12. For the Great Sword, you're going to do 2d6 plus 4d6. Indomitable Might. At 18th level, if your total for a strength check is less than your strength score, you can choose that score in place of the total. By this point, your strength score should be a 20. It should. For any strength check that you're making, right? Athletics checks, you want to go, like, at this point, 18th level, grappling is not exactly the greatest thing in the world, unless, like we see with this giant barbarian we may be getting. Now you want to be able to go up and grapple a Tarask, whatever. But usually, for a barbarian, the creatures that you're fighting at this level, unless it's like, strong wizards or something like that, you've been kind of locked out of shoves and grapples for a little bit here. But you just being able to swap the score over, it's a nice bonus right here, but ultimately, I just don't know that you're going to use this a ton. And then their big bad capstone right here, Primal Champion. At 20th level, you embody the power of the wilds. Your strength and constitution scores increase by 4. Your maximum for these scores is now 24. What this means is potentially the extra damage that you're dealing with an attack is going to be about a plus 11. So you're going to get a plus 7 from your strength score being a 24. And then if you look up here, your rage damage bonus is going to be a plus 4. So you have the plus 11 here. If you went with Great Weapon Master, you have a plus 10 on the hit. And then if you crit, like, oh man. And this is on more than one attack on your turn. So Barbarian is, I love the crescendo of what happens with Barbarians leveling. This is like one of my favorite designed classes in D&D 5e. If you want some of my recommendations for what these subclasses are, I like I said, I won't really go super into those because I've covered quite a bit of them. The ones that I would recommend, let me tell you the ones to avoid for right now because we know there's just bad playfield with them. Battlerager, this has appeared in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. This one is just, it's clunky to say the very least. It's trying to do this like, you're doing spiked armor, you can grapple thing, which sounds like it could be fun, but it's just, this one wasn't really designed by WotC. It didn't get their like final design like polish. So this one is definitely a weird standout in the entire system. Berserker Barbarian, this is probably my pick for the worst subclass currently in D&D 5e. I don't consider this one to be viable, despite having one of the cooler looking 3rd level features right here. If you want an easy fix, swap the 14th level with the 3rd and get rid of the exhaustion, and then make this right here. This is actually a fix that someone in my community picked out, and I love the idea. You being able to swap something with your rage damage bonus on top of all, like, oh man, I think that there could be some pretty scary stuff you could do with Intimidating Presence. Mindless Rage, I think this is pretty fine right here, actually. Maybe if you got the resistance to like psychic damage, which another member of my community pointed out, I think that was Odd Eye that came up with these fixes. Those are some of my favorite picks for like tweaks to the Berserker I've seen out there. Now, generally, if you want to be an amazing damage sponge, Totem Warrior is probably the pick right there, specifically Bear. Bear is just such a standout. You have resistance to all damage except psychic damage. Totem needs... Bear needs a bit of a tweak, but all the rest of the totems could also just... It would be nice to see all of them kind of elevated a little bit. My personal thought is it would be nice in the future to see this be able to swap out the totems. I think that could be really cool. If you want to go with a bit of a striker, Path of the Zealot does quite a bit of extra damage on top of everything else. It also has this 3rd level that is kind of an odd one where it doesn't really kick into play until the other party members are at like 5th level, but you know, this is probably my pick for one of the better strikers in terms of like single target damage. The other one probably being the Beast Barbarian. You can just basically mutate and grow a bite, claws, tail, whatever. And this also has probably my favorite capstone of any of the barbarians, called the Hunt. But I'm a sucker for support and this sort of a like bruiser support thing in here. I really dig Path of the Beast for the most part. Path of Wild Magic, this one's just kind of zany all over the place. If you really like the random chaos, this is a pretty alright striker. It's not my personal taste. I will say that like there's a few, again, Storm Herald is a little bit clunky in this. My personal pick for one that I'm like, boy, if you go with Totem Warrior, you go with Beast, you're in for a great time. But this may very well be my favorite barbarian in the entire game right now. Ancestral Guardian. I love playing the tank that can draw aggro. This is one of the best ways that we have of drawing aggro in the game right now. Ancestral Protectors is going to make it to where there's these spectral warriors that appear whenever you enter your rage. While you're raging, the first creature you hit with an attack on your turn becomes the target of the warriors, which hinder its attacks. And then until the start of your next turn, that target has disadvantage on any attack roll that isn't against you. And when the target hits a creature other than you with an attack, that creature has resistance to the damage dealt by the attack. The effect on the target ends early if you're raged. I have still been waiting for a game to really play an Ancestral Guardian Barbarian in, just to feel like how intensely I can draw aggro like this. Like that, oh man. I love the tank play style. If you're like me, go pick this one up because I think Ancestral Guardian is probably my pick for like the top barbarian of 5e. Okay, so that's going to be it on this one. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. A huge shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping me keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. Y'all are absolute heroes. And I want to announce over on Patreon, we're currently doing the Patreon exclusive for July. The voting on that one is going to be between a couple different subclasses or like character options. It looks like it's going to be between the Fighter Lancer, a Runic Pugilist. I'm going to do a little bit of a crossover with Benjamin. I'm going to write one of my magic systems for his class. So I think the sorcerer was the metallurgic essence, so you are like an iron bending kind of a sorcerer. But the one that it seems to be for this month is going to be the Warlock Pact Boon of the Crown. I saw all these previews coming out for Cult of the Lamb, and I'm like, that'd be really cool. That'd be really sick for Barbarian to get a hold of. So like, you being a kind of a cult leader warlock, yeah. So if that's something that would interest you, why not go check out my Patreon? If you want to support the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And that is going to be it for me on this one, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. Subscribe if you haven't already. Go check out some of my work over on the DMs Guild. I'm the designer of the Merchant, Dancer, and the Rune Keeper. Anyways, I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and rage on.